Did you become an INFP throughout time because you made certain life choices, or were you just born that way? Let's talk about that in today's video. What I found is that some INFPs are made or make themselves throughout time, but most people were just born that way. Yeah, we know today that people are born with a particular genetic predisposition to, in this case, be a little bit more introverted than extroverted, more intuitive than sensory, more feeling than thinking, and more perceiving than judging. Some of you will be very introverted, some just a little bit. Some will be very intuitive, some just a little bit. And some will be very feeling, and some just a little bit. Essentially, your skills can vary. What we can see is that, for example, in these 4 INFPs, one stands out for their introversion and intuition, while the other stands out for their feeling and perceiving preference. This one stands out for their introversion and feeling, while this one stands out for their intuition and perceiving. And as kids, while they share a lot of similarities, they'll also have a lot of differences. This INFP is going to be described as very thoughtful and very philosophical, perhaps quite wise. This INFP will be self-expressive, loves art, self-expression in all kinds of forms, singing, creating, drawing, sharing stories. This INFP will stand out for loving books, liking to read, often engaging in a lot of daydreaming, and being very compassionate and very empathetic. And maybe this one will be said to be very creative, very full of ideas, and asking a lot of questions, curious, right? Ultimately, they're all INFPs, but the kind of INFP you are can vary. So, what can happen over time? Well, let's look at these same people as they become adults. Perhaps what you'll notice is that, this one has spent some time changing and working on themselves. They've really harnessed their intuition, and they've become exceptionally curious and thoughtful people, but they've also become a little bit more outgoing. They've become a little bit better at socializing with others, a little bit more outspoken, and a little bit more interested in the outer world. On the other hand, they balanced out some of their traits, become a little bit more compassionate and a little bit more free flow. On the other hand, this INFP has chosen to primarily specialize in feeling and perceiving, and has continued to go more into journalism, exploring different opinions and ideas, and becoming a bit more artistic and self-expressive in some forms. Perhaps they're a musician. On the other hand, this INFP has become quite balanced. They work in counseling, and they work with people, so they have to go out and engage with others, and they also have to balance being more introspective and being better at listening, but also being slightly more practical. And this INFP, they've become a bit of a rebel. They've spent a lot of time working in nonprofit, the community work. They engage in a lot of ideas and discussions online, and they are very intellectually interested, read a lot of books on nonfiction and society and politics. Essentially all these INFPs are different and have become different people as adults. There's changes, yes, but the changes are quite small. Overall, it's not enough to really make a big difference. But hey, look at this. This INFP has become more sensory. In this case, this INFP might have even come to identify more as a sensing type. They're a little bit in between. And this INFP, they become a bit more extroverted and a little bit more thinking. They become a little bit more like an ENTP, a debater. Essentially, most of these INFPs have stayed more or less the same, but there's been a small change in the terms of their preference. Yes, these kind of personality types can happen, but most people tend to stay in a certain range. On the other hand, what about when they retired? What if when they got older? What happened? Well, here you can see that this INFP continued to develop all their dominant traits and worked from their strengths and became very much balanced in how an INFP is. This INFP is as close as you can get to the most INFP ever. Textbook INFP, they probably strongly identify with INFP type. This INFP, once again, even more sensing, has become very practical. It's taken up crafts and hobbies, maybe gardening, maybe gotten more interested in sports and athletic pursuits. All of these things have really driven them towards becoming more grounded and down-to-earth people. This INFP has, on the whole, stayed more or less the same, but is more balanced compared to the first one. And this INFP, that INFP has really become a true ENTP in this case, except for their feeling here. They probably average out as an ENFP. So essentially what you're seeing is they become a very outgoing person, but they've become a little bit more empathetic and compassionate. Perhaps they had kids or grandchildren and they have to spend a lot of time with those. And maybe that's made them care a little bit more for other people and made them a little bit more empathetic, compassionate. So as you can see, change is possible, but what we call rank order change is very difficult. This INFP that was always very intuitive from when they were born has stayed very intuitive. Rank order change, where you change a significant part of yourself, is very difficult to do. And yeah, what are the circumstances that make change possible? Well, the things that can make a difference for you is, for example, starting a new relationship, having kids, or moving to a new country. These are just some of the examples of things that cause you to have drastic changes in your environment, and that can change, ultimately, how do you come across and how you act and what you do. But the core message is you tend to stay more or less the same. So you won't become a completely different person. You will keep maintaining the core of who you are, and the best thing you can do is learn to love and accept yourself for who you are and find an environment where you can thrive and feel at your best. While you can make small and significant improvements in your personality, you can't become a completely different person, nor should you want to. Our differences are, after all, what make us unique.